Okay, so we're gonna start our lean dough, and we are making a classic French bread style loaf, and we're going to use a pre-ferment. We're gonna use a pot fermenté, which means fermented dough, which translates really to old dough, or if you were baking in a bakery and you made bread yesterday, you would actually take some of that dough before you baked it and you would put it to the side, let it ferment overnight, and then the next day you would add that into your new batch of dough. So that's what we're gonna do. Classic recipe, it is 4 ingredients: flour, salt, yeast, and water. That's what classically French bread consists of. Now the pot ferment that I made is here. I actually made it yesterday, and it's nothing more than flour, salt, yeast, and water, just a smaller amount. So I'm gonna put all of my ingredients into my mixer. So I have my flour, and I have yeast. This is instant yeast, so it just goes right in. I have salt, and then I'm going to add in my water, and then I'm going to add in my pot fermenté. Put that right in too. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix. So this is straight dough method. Everything in the mixer, turn on the mixer, and then begin mixing the dough up. You let the dough come to a nice consistency, gather itself up into that rough stage that we look for in the preparation of dough. It should start cleaning off the sides of the mixer, gathering up the dough itself. I'm going to take just a second and just push down the remainder of that dough into the mixer. And then I'm going to let that continue, let it go for a little bit higher speed, cleaning it up, and now we're going into the kneading process where we're developing the gluten. Very important, obviously, we want to develop the gluten. We're going to do the window pane test, where we actually take a piece of the dough out and test it, pull it, so that we see that nice, thin, fibrous strand that demonstrates that it's gluten, almost like a parchment, a bit of a parchment sheet that the dough will pull out to. If you pull on it and it just breaks apart, there's not enough gluten that's been developed yet, so you need to let it work for a little bit longer. This will probably take about 8 to 10 minutes. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to ferment it and allow it to go through the fermentation process for probably about 2.5 to 3 hours, punching it back a couple times, and then we will go ahead and make it up. Okie doke. Here's our dough after fermentation. We have taken it out of its bowl and we are allowing it to bench rest so that we can proceed with shaping. As part of our shaping procedure, we're going to pull the dough tautly together to form a strong gluten structure, working with the dough on the bench, pulling it tighter and tighter to make a round ball or a boule so that it is very tight and the gluten has very strong structure. Once the dough has been pulled tight and we form it into that boule, and the gluten is extremely strong and the dough has a nice round shape that resists to the touch, it is ready for its proofing. Pushing on the dough will tell you that it is now taut. We're going to flour a bowl with a cloth in it so that we can proof our bread into our baton. Make sure that it's well floured because we want to pick up the flour as part of the garnish in our final bread product. Placing the dough in the bowl with the seam side up
So the nice, smooth elastic is at the bottom. And here is our dough in our bowl. We're going to cover it with the ends of our white cloth. And this can be a napkin or a dish towel or anything that you might have. Cover it completely. And we're going to just proof it directly on the counter. You can put it into the oven if you'd like to proof with warm water. Here, we're going to bake our bread in a Dutch oven. So our Dutch oven is heating up while our bread is proofing, probably the last 15 minutes. We have cornmeal that we're going to dust on the bottom. We're going to take our proofed bread, which took about an hour and a half, out of our bowl, and we're going to place it into our Dutch oven. Our oven is at 450 degrees, and we place the bread into the Dutch oven. We place the lid on the Dutch oven, and we bake it for 25 minutes. Then we take the lid off and bake it an additional 15 minutes or until we get a beautiful golden crust. This will allow for a nice steaming of the bread and make a beautiful boule that we can make in a home oven. Here the bread is taken out as it is at 194 degrees internal temperature. And you can see that the bread has formed very nicely. It has a beautiful golden crisp crust. We have scored it. And then there is our finished boule of French bread. You can make it in the traditional baguette shape,